Hello and welcome to Nice and Blunt. Today is Friday, June 21st, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and it's time for another live stream. Let's go. All right, here we are on UnderdogFantasy.com, where we do all of our drafts in the off season, and we're going to hop into the Puppy 2, a tournament where it's pretty standard $5 entry. You have to finish top 2 out of your 12-team league to advance to the playoffs, where you win your money back. Then you finish 1 out of 10 in week 15, where you double your money to $10. Then you got to finish 1 out of 10 again. However, from there you make $750. And then if you can advance to the final and you finish top 10, you make 10K. And if you finish first overall, you would make 100K. So good tournament and typical scoring settings, half PPR, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers in your starting lineup, 1 quarterback, 1 tight end, 1 flex, and 10 bench spots. Let us begin. Let's get going. If you want to join, there's 10 spots left in this draft. If you want to do some drafts on Underdog yourself, you can use my code Nice and Blunt and get your first deposit matched up to 50%. No, you will get it 50% up to $250. That's what it is. That's the deal. But you can use the link in the description, and that'll send you to the right place. And use code Nice and Blunt when you sign up. I would appreciate it. But we're waiting for just a few more spots to fill. Only 3 more spots in this lobby. And this draft will kick off very, very shortly. But in the meantime, let me make sure I have all my stream settings correct. I think so. I think this is the view that we normally go with. I think it's all set. Looks like we have pick 6, and that's good. That means we're in line for a top 5 wide receiver, assuming Christian McCaffrey doesn't fall. That would be shocking. But most likely we're going to be in line for Amon-Ra St. Brown, a player I think is very, very safe to finish top 5. I think if you're in season long, you can argue for Amon-Ra as high as wide receiver number 3. I think St. Brown is going to be one of the most valuable assets in fantasy football next season. So a little bit more valuable in redraft as opposed to best ball, but definitely meriting a top 5 wide receiver finish. I think that's what you should expect from Amon-Ra St. Brown, who just got paid and is most likely going to be our draft pick at pick 6. So don't want to jinx it. We'll see what happens. But as long as I get one of these top 5 wide receivers, I'm going to be very confident with the beginning of this draft for this team. So here we are. We're underway. And CMC does go number 1. That's what usually happens. So we're in a normal league so far. CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill. And if it goes Jamar and JJ, we will get St. Brown. But oh, it appears I got my badge. Oh wow, this just happened. I got my first badge. I got the black badge. So I've done 500 of these drafts in the last 3 years. Yeah. Oh wow. Maybe that happened a few days ago. I had not noticed, but look at me with the badge. I qualify as experienced. Oh boy. Exciting stuff. I feel like that's less a signifier that I'm good. I mean, there's a potential that someone with the badge is good, but I think it's a little bit more of a signifier that they may be an addict. So there it is. I finally have it. Wait, I'm happy. I've been wondering when that was going to come in, and here it is. But St. Brown does get taken at pick 5, so we get Justin Jefferson. Not going to be upset with that at all. If it was a regular season long, I would be taking St. Brown above Justin Jefferson. Don't exactly know what to expect with the quarterback situation. And as much as I think Sam Darnold will be fine, at some point there will be the transition to JJ McCarthy, and McCarthy's inexperience as a rookie, also as someone who was like barely asked to carry the team at Michigan, I'm a little concerned about the production at QB later on in the season. But you know for sure Justin Jefferson is going to be the go-to target no matter who the quarterback is. And with the contract they just gave him, if he stays healthy, he should finish top 5 no matter what. And he has more of a spike week potential. I think he is definitely a good pick in best ball, appropriately going top 5 typically. But we get him here at number 6. And so far in this tournament, I do have a couple teams with St. Brown. I only have one with Jefferson. So for the sake of my exposure, it's not bad. But interesting selection here. Pick 12 takes Devon Achane at number 13. That's definitely a unique build. I can't say I ever see anybody take Devon Achane on the right side of the board. So pick 12, Marvin Harrison, Devon Achane, very unique start. And we see Jahmyr Gibbs fall to pick 15, paired with Puka at number 10. But other than that, Taylor goes like a couple picks before ADP, nothing crazy. I'm starting to believe a little bit more in Jonathan Taylor. I think Taylor is starting to be more and more interesting. But here we are. Can't go running back. We could go Ayuk. We could go Devontae Adams. Ayuk has a bit of a weird mojo surrounding him. So I am going to take Nico Collins. I think Nico Collins is definitely the Houston Texans wide receiver that you want. A little bit risky with the fact that there's 3 of them there that are all going to contribute. Diggs added to the rotation. Tank Dell, absolutely a talented receiver, but Nico with his contract at 6'4", I think is the safest one. But we do see Debo go above Ayuk. We see Waddle go above Ayuk, so Ayuk is falling a little bit. To pick 22, and there is just some weird energy surrounding him and the Niners at the moment. Not totally sure what's going to happen. I feel pretty confident that he stays, but I can't say that with 100% certainty. His contract situation is looming, and he definitely wants to be paid more than they're willing to spend up until this point. But a lot of times, contract negotiations get like the ugliest before they get resolved. And maybe the recent situation is a sign that maybe there's going to be a deal pretty soon. But who knows? Maybe they trade him. Maybe they move off. They did draft 2 wide receivers in rounds 1 and 4 in Ricky Pearsall and Jacob Cohen. You would assume the expectation to replace either Debo or Ayuk this year or next. I think they want to push it to next year. They want another shot at the Super Bowl. And I think their best chance is to retain both Debo and Ayuk on the roster this year. So we'll see what happens, but there is some risk with Ayuk. Just a little bit. Minor risk. But we could target CJ Stroud and grab Stephon Diggs here. I have spoken about a few days ago, I guess like a week ago, how I'm starting to feel like Tank Dell may be more valuable than Diggs, but I don't think I'm going to do that. I'm going to go with Stephon Diggs. We're going to double up on Texans with Justin Jefferson. And I'm going to try and press my luck with CJ Stroud that he falls to 67. I was in a draft, I don't know if it was yesterday or earlier today. It was off the live stream. Nico Collins went at like 13. I was pick 9, and I took Stephon Diggs at 33. He fell to me at 33. And then at 34, Team 10 grabbed Tank Dell. And usually CJ Stroud goes 5th round. I passed on him at 57. He did not go around the turn, and I gambled. I passed on him at 64. I had a build where I didn't feel like I wanted to draft quarterback there, and I gambled that who knows, maybe I could get him back around because no other team on that long turn had CJ Stroud, and I got so close for him making it back to 81. CJ Stroud was drafted at pick 79 in one of my drafts earlier in this tournament to a team that took Josh Allen at 42. The team at 42 had Josh Allen, and Lamar Jackson went at 41, and it was so close to him making it to me at 81. I was like so giddy seeing it get closer and closer, and then team 7 sniped me on it, and I was like, oh, damn it. So I think taking the gamble that Stroud is going to be there at 67 is absolutely a fair bet. And at the moment, there's a small chance that we actually could get Tank Dell at pick 43 because wide receiver has not really come off the board yet. I mean, we only see Cooper Kupp at 32. This turn went very heavy against the wide receiver position, which is an interesting strategy because all 3 of these late round 1 teams passed on receiver in round 2, and then team 8 also has double running back. This is a odd league because these top 5 teams, top 5 out of 6 have 3 wide receivers at the gate, and then other than team 9, nobody had more than 1 wide receiver through 3 rounds in the second half of the board. So very interesting, but it is what it is. We do not get Tank Dell though. He goes at pick 39. Now we're on the board. We could go just Jalen Hurts. We could definitely do that, but I am really starting to like Amari Cooper. There's a bit of a contract dispute with him. Missed the final day of minicamp, but don't really care. I expect him to get paid. And I do not believe in Jerry Jeudy this year. Jerry Jeudy is someone I used to believe in. He's burned me year over year, and I don't really expect a big leap in volume for him moving over to Cleveland. I still trust Amari Cooper to put up really good numbers. So we're going to take our 4th wide receiver, and we're going to feel very safe in this format that we have a very good platoon in this league. But we do see Team 5 use the same strategy. They go George Pickens, pick 44. Jalen Hurts falls to 46. I've yet to see Hurts fall to around 5, but I'm starting to see him fall to this late half of the 4th round pretty often, as the 4th round is starting to still prioritize wide receiver a lot. So who knows? Maybe we'll get to August and Jalen Hurts will be like pick 50 in ADP. I doubt it, but it is possible. We see ETN falling. I'd be very happy with ETN. We see Pacheco go. ETN goes 51, so we do not get him. But maybe we get Lamar Jackson. Nope, we don't get him either. So we're probably getting sniped on Josh Jacobs, but I'd probably take Josh Jacobs if available. Yeah, that's who I will take. Little bit concerned about Marshawn Lloyd there. Not concerned at all about A.J. Dillon. But given the contract, I do expect Jacobs to see a big role while Lloyd is a rookie. And he's going to be our RB1 for this team. So we went Justin Jefferson, Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs, Amari Cooper, Josh Jacobs to start off this draft. Now we wait, and we're hoping to see CJ Stroud come back around. The team at 10 is the only other team with a Texans receiver that could snipe us. But we'll see what happens. I think they pass here at 58. And maybe they grab him at 63. But they only have 2 receivers. I think there's a decent shot that we luck out. They have 2 Detroit Lions. So I think they might be targeting Jared Goff. And who knows, maybe this works out for me. But if you've not done so yet, ladies and gentlemen, please hit that like button for me. If you are new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button as well. Helps the channel grow and gives me a little more exposure in the algorithm. And as always, if you do have any questions, feel free to comment in the chat. I will answer them when I see them. But interesting, Team 12 goes Kyler Murray, increasing our odds that we get CJ Stroud, because now Anthony Richardson remains on the board, and there he goes to the team with Tank Dell. That's what we wanted to see. So we could still get sniped, but these next 3 teams do not have a Texan, and they are not as incentivized to go with CJ Stroud. So that's probably who I'm going to take. Unless I'm feeling the urge to gamble that maybe Stroud... Oh, no, he goes at 65. Bummer. It is what it is. We do not have that option. But maybe I go George Kittle. Not in love with Chris Godwin. Only 2 touchdowns last year. I guess 3 with the rushing score. And we don't even have the option to take him, so I'm not upset about it. I wish I had more George Kittle, but it's just difficult in this range of the draft where I know that like wide receivers so critical to have. And I think I'm going to go with Brian Thomas. Brian Thomas, a player I talk myself more and more into as the weeks go by. Because Christian Kirk goes 2 rounds above him, and I think there's absolutely a scenario where Brian Thomas is more valuable straight up than Christian Kirk. I think he could find his way to being the wide receiver 1 in Jacksonville. Given his talent, given his draft capital, they traded down, I believe, in round 1. They did not take him at like 17, but they still took him in the top 20, I'm pretty sure. And in terms of like rookie wide receiver profiles, Brian Thomas was not as good as the top 3, but he was definitely better than whoever was wide receiver 5. So in the draft, it was Xavier Worthy. He was definitely more talented than Worthy, and he was kind of in a tier of his own where you couldn't really argue for him as good as Odunze, but he lands in a better spot, arguably, than even Malik Neighbors. Not going to say he's in a better spot than Marvin Harrison. Wouldn't expect a better season than Harrison, but definitely a better quarterback situation. And there's a little bit more competition than Neighbors, but it's not like the Giants' offense is one we're expecting to be really good. So Brian Thomas could absolutely put up Calvin Ridley numbers. We saw Ridley go in round 3 last year, and Ridley was not like a terrible investment where he was going. He was probably more like a round 4 pick. And I think Brian Thomas should be like more like a 5th rounder. But to get him in round 6, I think, is a very safe investment. And wide receiver does dry up quickly. Like, we're kind of looking at Christian Watson, maybe his best case scenario. if we wanted to go wide receiver around 7. So now I have 5 that I feel really confident in, and it does open us up for some Trevor Lawrence Jacksonville stacks, and I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to grab Evan Ingram and start to bet on the Jacksonville Jaguars. We could go Alvin Kamara, we could go David Montgomery, but I still think there's going to be really good running backs available in round 8, and I think Jake Ferguson is kind of the last tight end that I'm comfortable as my number 1. Meanwhile, Evan Ingram finished with amazing numbers last year, also really good numbers the year before, and I feel really safe that Evan Ingram is going to be in our lineup like 13 out of 17 weeks. Evan Ingram was so safe last year. The touchdowns really only came when Christian Kirk got injured, but his target numbers were so secure. He was such a good play, and I don't think the volume is really going to diminish too much, despite them adding Gabe Davis. And last year, there were some injuries to Zay Jones, Christian Kirk. We all know Calvin Ridley was up and down. Ingram is still a pretty good staple in that offense. And to double up on Jags, I think is very safe in round 6 and 7. So we have our tight end 1. We have 5 receivers. We have our running back 1. And we remain pretty flexible the rest of the way. We can move off of wide receiver. If there's a good value, we'll take it. But the middle of the draft, rounds 8 through 12, is really where the majority of great running back value, as well as quarterback value, lies. There's some really good quarterbacks available. And running back round 8, I think, is like the prime spot to be drafting this year, at least on Underdog. But just look at the board. Like, there's so little orange left, and the caliber of player is not someone you're like super excited about. Like, Courtland Sutton needs to put up 10 touchdowns to pay off as like a good pick again, but only put up 772 receiving yards, 90 targets. You know what was crazy? Like, I was looking into this. Sutton compared to Jerry Jeudy last year was like night and day. You would absolutely rather have Sutton. Meanwhile, when you like think back about Jerry Jeudy, it was like a really disappointing year, despite him getting injured in the preseason and missing a little bit of time to start the season. But Courtland Sutton had less than like 25 more yards to finish the season than Jerry Jeudy did. We'll head over to Pro Football Focus. We're going to be on the clock really soon, so I'll get back to that right after I make my pick. But it was shocking how similar the stat lines were for Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton. And it's not like you thought about Jeudy as a good player for fantasy at all last season. Meanwhile, Sutton was very valuable just because of the touchdowns. And with Bo Nix coming in, I know Jeudy left, but there's definitely a scenario where Sutton craters back down to like only 3-4 touchdowns, and he's not a safe pick at all. So he's fine where he's going. I don't really want to reach on him, but I liked him a lot more when he was going after pick 100. That's no longer the case with Courtland Sutton. But we're definitely in line to grab a running back here. And love me some Zach Moss. I think Zach Moss is going to be in line for a lot of touchdowns this year in the Cincinnati Bengals offense. I have the Bengals slated for 12 wins this season, so a lot of high-scoring games, and if they are going to win that much, the running back position will be used heavily. They no longer have Joe Mixon. T. Higgins is in a weird situation, and Burrow does have a wrist injury. Kind of a weird situation with him. So I love the upside for Zach Moss. As an RB2, I feel very safe with him, and I think he could be in line for 10-plus touchdowns this year. If that does happen, he's going to be a smash pick. Very safe in, the 8th round, pick 91. I think Moss is super secure. Maybe I'm wrong where Chase Brown steals that job, but I think Moss, with his experience, the contract they gave him, definitely profiles as more of a RB1 in that backfield. But back to what I was saying about Jerry Jeudy, like, take a look at his stat line. 87 targets, 54 catches, 758 yards, only 2 touchdowns. Meanwhile, we go to Sutton, And Sutton only had 2 more targets, 90, 59 catches, 772 yards. So, yeah, like I was saying, less than 20 receiving yards more than Jerry Jeudy. Very similar numbers between those two wide receivers in Denver, but 10 touchdowns compared to 2 was the difference. And if you look back at all of Sutton's previous seasons, he has one with 6, but otherwise his rookie year he put up 4, he put up 0, granted only in 1 game in his third year, so that's a bit of an outlier. But only 2 in 17 games back in 2021, and then 2 in 14 games in 2022. Last year was definitely a possible like peak season for Courtland Sutton. So not exactly the safest pick. It's just a question of who else are you really like getting at receiver that late in the draft. But with our 5, it feels good to know that we don't have to push it at that position. We could go Jordan Love. I'd be very comfortable with Jordan Love, but team 5 does not have a QB, and they do have Christian Watson. I'd probably expect them to grab Love. So we're probably going to be back in line for a running back. If they pass on Love, I will be drafting him, but I really don't expect Love stays on the board. So contingency plans of Pollard, Benson. I do not have a lot of Pollard this season. I'm not super high on Tony Pollard. Very disappointing season last year. Wow. Team 5 does go Tony Pollard. So we're going to get Jordan Love. Let's hope that maybe Romeo Doubs falls back around. I doubt that will happen. But even if it doesn't, I don't really care too much. I think Dontavian Wicks is a very interesting draft pick as well. And we do have Josh Jacobs, who does correlate a little bit. Hopefully Jacobs is used as more of a pass catcher this year. Supposedly that will be more likely for him. Supposedly that's going to be a factor of his game. He is replacing Aaron Jones after all, and it's not like he can't catch the ball. Jacobs, I think, is an underrated pass catcher. I just think Antonio Pierce really didn't want to use him that way. But last year, he still saw 54 targets. The 2 previous seasons, Jacobs saw 64 targets back-to-back years and caught at least 53 receptions. So last year was a down season in that regard. It was a down season for him overall, definitely compared to the year before. It was like half the production, like literally. But I see a bounce back year in line for Jacobs. If he can stay healthy, I would expect a lot more rushing yards. And I mean, still 54 targets is still pretty legit. So I don't think Jacobs is like an atrocious. It's not like impossible that he stacks up with Jordan Love pretty well, but we are setting ourselves up for a Trevor Lawrence stack with Brian Thomas, Evan Ingram. So that's probably going to be our selection at 115 if available. And although I've kind of ignored running back a little bit, I still feel kind of confident with these 2 to where I don't think I like have to draft one. I don't think it's completely critical, but the team at 7 right before us does have Christian Kirk, and there is a scenario where they snipe us on Lawrence, and that might not be the worst thing in the world given our needs at running back. So we'll see what happens here. They have 4. I would expect them to draft Trevor Lawrence. They do not. Okay, so here we are looking at Trey Benson falling to pick 115, almost 10 full picks. And I do like him a lot. We already have Jared Goff. I'm going to take a chance. I'm going to take a chance that we can get a really good value on Trevor Lawrence. And we're going to draft Trey Benson, our RB3. And given the lack of running back around the turn, along with some teams that already have 2 quarterbacks, I don't think that was a egregious gamble. I think this might pay off for me. Because there's going to be a lot of teams that have the stacks that you have. Like, it's not like people are new to this game, and it's not like people draft players like Brian Thomas, Evan Ingram, and don't secure that stack at pick 115, hypothetically. But it's less likely that they get it at 126, and we're going to try to be the team that has Lawrence at 126. Remember how Benson was definitely a player we were considering at 102. He falls 10 spots. There's absolutely a scenario where Trevor Lawrence falls 10 spots. So I'm trying to have a more unique roster and getting players who fall in ADP, trying to rig it in our favor a little bit, is definitely a better path for success, in my opinion. Forcing the issue on stacks, reaching on them early is, sometimes it's warranted. Like, you've definitely seen me do that in the past, but it's not something I like to make a trend and a habit. But it's definitely more likely that you succeed getting the stack that falls to you rather than the stack that you reach on. But Team 5 does not have a quarterback at all, and we'll see what happens here. But we're going to be in line for one of our stacks to hit. So looks like we do get Trevor Lawrence. We could have gone Dontavian Wicks to pair up with Jordan Love, but I think it's more critical that we double up on the stack that we've already set ourselves up with Trevor Lawrence. So let's do that. We're also now done at the position where Jordan Love and Trevor Lawrence are the only 2 quarterbacks we're drafting. We do have Evan Ingram, but we can set ourselves up for still some good Packers stacks with the tight end position in Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft later on. That might be something I do. The bye is week 10. Evan Ingram is week 12, so that's definitely an option here. And who knows? Maybe Dontavian Wicks falls back around to us. I very, very much doubt that. I don't think that's going to happen at all, but I don't think it's critical. I think having Trevor Lawrence is a little more important for the team because I don't think there's any chance Lawrence falls back around to 139. That I do not think is happening. So that would be too risky for me. But it worked out for us. We passed on him at 115, and it absolutely worked out. So far, I'm liking this team. We hammered wide receiver early, and then we pivoted off the position. We went Justin Jefferson, Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs, Amari Cooper, and Brian Thomas in round 6. Those are our 5 wide receivers. We took Josh Jacobs, pick 54. We took Evan Ingram, pick 78. And we took Zach Moss in the 8th round. Jordan Love, a little bit past ADP at pick 102, round 9, followed by Trey Benson, 115, and Trevor Lawrence, 126. But Kimani Vidal shooting up the board to pick 132. Very interesting. Followed by Bryce Young. Team 12 is doing their own thing. Team 12 is really taking their own approach. Gonna have a unique roster, that's for sure, but reaching is usually not the best way to do it when you do it time and time again, over and over and over again. Like Pearsall 109. Yikes. We'll see how that works out. But there's 3 picks before ours, and Wicks is now sniped. Just as I start to get a little hopeful. Nope, does not happen. But I've spoken many times on the channel how I love Jerome Ford. Going to expect a lot of production, and I think he is a player you definitely like to have when paired with a rookie on your roster. Having a guy like Benson, someone I'm not totally sure is going to be like elite early on in the year, having Jerome Ford would be a good way to construct your roster in a way where you get kind of guaranteed production early on, and then if Benson does turn out to be that league winner later on in the season, you still are in very good shape because you got good production from a guy like Jerome Ford early on in the year. So really happy to take him. I've taken him early round 11 many times, and looks like he falls to us 11 picks, an ADP of 127.9. We get him here at 139. So we're getting a lot of players past ADP, and I like this team so far a lot. We have 4 running backs, 4 that I feel pretty safe with. Jacobs should be at worst top 12, but he could return to top 5 production. He was a league winner a couple years ago. Zach Moss, I'm hopeful if my bet on him as the goal line back is correct, that's absolutely going to work out. Benson, I think will get the starting job mid-season because James Conner usually goes down with injury. That's a pretty consistent thing to happen for him. He usually misses some games, and I think with the draft capital of Benson, with his talent, once he is inserted into the starting role, I don't think he's really going to give it up. I think James Conner will kind of be more relegated to a pass-catching role. But I think with the low volume of pass catchers in Arizona, I still think Benson is going to be a big part of their offense, regardless of James Conner's health. So I like him a lot, especially in round 10. I think he's very safe. He's usually going around 9. And then Jerome Ford, I've drafted on the live stream many times as early as pick 120. So we get him at 139. I'm very, very happy about that. So this team is one that I like a lot. Definitely a good chance to compete. And with our bevy of productive pass catchers that we took early on, we've had the luxury of moving off that position and not really thinking twice about it. That's what that strategy really affords you the chance to do, and I like it a lot. So I think now I can afford to move off of the running back position. We do have Ford, but Chubb here at 150. It's tempting. Maybe I should consider it, but it's probably wise to move back to wide receiver. Wide receiver does dry up quickly once you get past Darnell Mooney. And I think the comparison of Darnell Mooney to guys like Quentin Johnston, Jermaine Burton, Adam Thielen, maybe Thielen can put up a big year like last season, but I really doubt it given their additions. Whereas Mooney has a big contract, $13 million per year. And there is a scenario, I'm not saying it's guaranteed, but it is possible, where Mooney is actually more productive than Kyle Pitts. So Mooney's a guy I really like at this value. Round 13, pick 150, I think is very safe to pay off. And as our wide receiver 6, we're not counting on him on a weekly basis. It's just a matter of spike weeks. How does it work out? I think Mooney's a very safe selection here, especially in best ball, where you don't have to predict which weeks it's going to pay off, which weeks it doesn't. He's a downfield threat. Good quarterback situation with Cousins. And there aren't that many like wide receiver 2s that you're getting this late. Like Dontavian Wicks, who goes 14 picks earlier, is a wide receiver 4 possibly in his offense. Best case scenario, the wide receiver 3. Same with like Josh Downs. Gabe Davis also a wide receiver 3. Yeah, you're not going to replicate, I think, the target volume moving forward at wide receiver that you can with Darnell Mooney here at pick 150. So I like it. I like it a lot. Wan'Dale Robinson scares me. So, yeah, to compare the proposition of getting Darnell Mooney as opposed to Wan'Dale, yikes. But we're not going to get Chubb. Chubb goes to 152. And Team 8 taking a bit of a gamble with some injured players. They do get Schultz to pair up with CJ Stroud, but it feels like you'd rather have a receiver stacked up with CJ than Schultz. Maybe it works out, but they have TJ Hawkinson on the team at 137. Not a really good value. I've seen Hawkinson go past 150 as well, and they also go Nick Chubb. Maybe it works out for them tremendously, but to have both of them, 2 of the more injured vets, bit of a risky strategy. I'm fine taking one. I usually don't like to have both of them on the same roster, but if you can get them at crazy good values, it's not like it's insane. I just don't know if they got crazy good value on TJ. We could go Jalen Wright. We could go Antonio Gibson. But honestly, I've taken a lot of Jalen Wright, especially in this tournament already. I'm not going to do that despite him falling 11 picks already. It's very tempting. But I was hoping we could get like Luke Musgrave here. We do not. And I recently heard an argument for Chuba Hubbard that makes me think I need to start drafting a lot more of him, where the Jonathan Brooks injury is something you can't ignore. Chuba Hubbard's in the last year of his contract. And similar to our logic with Jerome Ford, where we're locking up production early on in the season, you know you're going to get a lot of snaps for Chuba Hubbard early on. And it's not like Jonathan Brooks could get hurt again. Coming off of injury, it's definitely possible. And I think to guarantee some big looks for him, like there's a chance that we see like 6 games for Hubbard where he's the clear-cut RB1 in a backfield that should be productive. Canales made Rachaad White look really good last season, and if he is able to be the quarterback whisperer that we've seen him be the last 2 seasons with Geno Smith in Seattle and then Baker Mayfield last year in Tampa, then this offense could and will likely be much improved. And even if they're trailing, Chuba Hubbard put up some really good stats last season when he was the RB1, and I think we're going to get a month of Hubbard really putting up good numbers where I think we can start off hot and not have to rely on Trey Benson at all. Like these last several weeks of the season, Chuba Hubbard was seeing 20-plus touches week in, week out, and putting up pretty good fantasy numbers with him, like 104 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, 87 rushing yards, 87 rushing yards, a few catches as well, 43 and a touchdown, 45 and 26. Nothing great in week 17, but then 23 touches, 83 yards. That's pretty safe. So Hubbard's interesting. Hubbard, I think, is a very safe pick in round 14. I also like him as our running back 5 because it's possible that now we can be done at the position and just stack up a few like late round receivers. But if Corley is on the board here for us, I'm probably going to go Malachi Corley. I can 100% envision a scenario where Corley is more valuable than Mike Williams next season. So we're going to take a shot on this rookie that I think has a defined role, one that doesn't exactly profile to be replicated. Like Garrett Wilson is not the typical like bubble screen player. He's more of an intermediate option and, you know, all around good receiver, but I don't think checkdowns behind the line of scrimmage are like going to be the bread and butter option for Garrett Wilson. That's definitely not the bread and butter role for Mike Williams. And Malachi Corley is just this like bubble screen machine. You know Aaron Rodgers is going to need to get the ball out quickly, given he's coming off a torn Achilles with a revamped offensive line. I could see a big role for Corley. And there's also potential that he has a really good relationship with Rodgers because supposedly Rodgers invited him to stay at his house this offseason after they drafted him. So maybe that's something that really benefits him. We know Rodgers skipped mandatory minicamp last week, but who knows? Maybe he has a ton of reps with Malachi Corley where it doesn't really affect the rookie in ways that it affects, you know, a guy like Mike Williams, perhaps. So definitely some upside with Corley if Rodgers can remain healthy. But let's remind you of this team. We started off with 4 wide receivers. Out the gate, we went Justin Jefferson, Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs, Amari Cooper. At wide receiver, we also have Brian Thomas. We also have Darnell Mooney, and we just took Malachi Corley in round 15. So we have 7 already. We could call it done, but I'm probably going to draft 1 more at least. At running back, I have Josh Jacobs. I have Zach Moss, Benson, Jerome Ford in round 12. Really good value on Jerome Ford. Very happy with that pick. And then Chuba Hubbard, round 14. I think an underrated selection. I think he kind of feels equally as valuable the more I think about it as a guy like Ty Chandler. And Ty Chandler is one of my most drafted running backs, if not the most drafted, behind Isaac Garendo, who's going in round 18. So Chuba Hubbard, possibly around 14 steal, perhaps a diamond in the rough. I do like Jonathan Brooks, but Brooks is coming off an ACL injury, and it's possible they drafted him for the long run, not this season. So Chuba Hubbard in the final year of his contract could offer some league-winning value, or at least help you start off red hot. I think in redraft, in your typical league, your hometown league, you're going to want Chuba Hubbard on your bench because you can probably start him the first 4 weeks of the season and get very productive value. Like last year, we thought that Jamal Williams would kind of be that guy with Kamara injured. Jamal Williams got hurt in week 1 and he was terrible last season, but it's kind of a similar situation. I think there's some guaranteed production for Chuba Hubbard, and I think he's going to be a sneaky start in your lineup the first month of the year when September rolls around. But now we're looking at like some tight ends. We ignored that position for a while. And there is some upside for Noah Fant, but I think there's some equally high upside for Chig Okonkwo. And I don't have a lot of Okonkwo compared to Fant. I'm going to go with Okonkwo. A lot of new wide receivers in that offense, but if you look back at the Bengals' usage of the tight end position last year, it was actually pretty high. And the reason I bring that up is because the offensive coordinator from the Bengals last season is now the new head coach in Tennessee. And Okonkwo has an established connection with Will Levis, as well as, some sneaky upside where he's the guy that defenses kind of forget about. And at tight end, I think he could have a role in the red zone and does offer decent value. It's not like Noah Fant doesn't have a lot of competition to deal with as well. So I think Okonkwo, Noah Fant are absolutely in the same tier. I am not a fan of Jonnu Smith. He does offer some good yak potential, but the Miami Dolphins offense is not one that's used the tight end position at all since Mike McDaniel has been the head coach. So I think there's some productive numbers in line for Okonkwo this late in the draft. And we also already have Evan Ingram, so we're not really counting on massive numbers from Okonkwo. I'm also going to draft another tight end. I think I'm going to be targeting Tucker Kraft in like round 18. So are there any running backs I like this late? Not like crazy. Wide receiver, nothing that like really speaks to me. I'm just going to give myself a little bit more time to think about it. I'm going to go Tucker Kraft to correlate with Jordan Love. I think Kraft is not a player I want as my tight end 2, but as my tight end 3 with a guy like Evan Ingram already on the roster, I feel very safe with him. And obviously, if anything were to happen to Luke Musgrave again, then Kraft put up some really, really productive numbers. He was a top 15 tight end consistently at the end of last season. And who knows, maybe he's shown enough that he could steal that role away from Musgrave. He's an interesting option. I don't hate him. It's just there's a lot of options in the Packers offense that make it kind of hard to bet on with like complete certainty. But we're definitely done at tight end. We're going to be looking at running back or wide receiver with our final pick. And maybe we look at a guy like Bo Melton, who would be the wide receiver 5. Didn't put up great numbers, but is kind of interesting. I'm probably not going to take him, though. I think that might be a wasted pick. But we could consider someone like Chase Claypool for the novelty of it. Definitely a different strategy, but I probably won't do it. We could go Jalen Hyatt, hoping for like a breakout in year 2, but I doubt that works out. Maybe we go running back. Maybe betting on like a rookie, maybe Dylan Laube could have some potential usage. Garendo, definitely interesting. I actually do not have a single share of Garendo in this tournament, so maybe I go with Garendo. Garendo is my bet in San Francisco to be the handcuff to Christian McCaffrey. If anything were to happen to McCaffrey, there's so much production in that Niners backfield. There's a big chance that he's a zero, but to take him in round 18, definitely worth the risk. And I don't really love the upside with Dameon Pierce. I think Bigsby scares me a lot. Very unproductive last season. A lot of fumbles, not much usage. Madison, I don't love. I'd rather go with Laube. I think the rookie's more interesting behind Zamir White. Estime rumored to have a role, but I've taken a few of Estime already. Shipley, I think I'd rather have Shipley than Kenny Gainwell, but no one's really speaking to me, and I'm going to go with my tried and true round 18 bet. I'm going to go with Isaac Garendo. True league-winning upside. True potential to be this year's Kyron Williams. We're going to go Isaac Garendo. And that's it for this team. That's it for the roster. Let's remind you of how it went. We have Jordan Love and Trevor Lawrence at quarterback. Love is stacked up with Josh Jacobs, who is an under-the-radar pass catcher. 3 straight seasons with at least 50-plus targets. And I think it could be in line for even more this year. We also have Tucker Kraft stacked up with Jordan Love. But we have Trevor Lawrence, who's stacked up with Brian Thomas and Evan Ingram. I think the 2 most valuable receivers in the Jags offense this year. And then at running back, we have Jacobs, Zach Moss, Trey Benson, Jerome Ford, Chuba Hubbard, Isaac Garendo. At receiver, we have Justin Jefferson, Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs, Amari Cooper, Brian Thomas, Darnell Mooney, Malachi Corley. And at tight end, we have Evan Ingram, Chig Okonkwo, and Tucker Kraft. That'll be it for this video. And another live stream is in the books. If you enjoyed, hit that like button for me. Subscribe to the channel for more content as well. And I will probably see you tomorrow. I think I'm going to see you tomorrow with another live stream over the weekend. But that's going to be it for me. My name is Adam Riancho, and thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time. Goodbye. I'll see you next time.